Well guys, the day we've been waiting for is finally here. Today we got the full announcement for Halloween Horror Nights 32 in Orlando. We got all the houses, all the scare zones, all the information. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a little overwhelmed with everything that was just thrown at us. So let's break it down. Let's go through the entire announcement and talk about what to expect at Halloween Horror Nights 32 at Universal Orlando. So hello again, I am Liz. I am a diehard Halloween Horror Nights fan, and on this channel I talk Halloween Horror Nights news, rumors, announcements, and when fall rolls around, which is just a little over a month away, I vlog many nights during the event. Plus I try to cover other local Florida haunts, including Sir Henry's and Howl-O-Scream Orlando and Tampa. So if you love Florida haunts, if you love Halloween, make sure to subscribe. So we've been waiting this season for news, and today Halloween Horror Nights said, here's all of it. So we have a lot to discuss. We have so many houses to cover, so many scare zones to cover. We even seem to have an icon, even though he's not getting official promotion quite yet. He is all over the lore of this event. So we have tons to discuss. Let's start with the houses. So to recap what we already know from previous announcements, we have Chucky, although we did get an update to the Chucky name, more on that in a bit. The Last of Us, and Stranger Things 4. Now today, the first announcement we got was The Exorcist Believer. This has been on the rumors map, we've talked about it quite a bit, and sure enough, we are getting Blumhouse's Exorcist Believer, which doesn't appear in movie theaters until October 13th. For 6 weeks of the event, we'll be going through a house of a movie no one's seen yet. They've done it before. We saw Dracula Untold get a similar treatment. Was it successful? Very debatable. So I'm not quite sure how this will pan out. I just saw the trailer for it earlier this week. I'm not seeing a ton that I think would be great for our house. The original Exorcist house had a lot of repeated scenes, so I'm not quite sure how this one would work. I'm apprehensive about this IP at Halloween Horror Nights 32, but this is what the description says. 2 missing girls have been found with no memory of what happened to them. Wherever they went, the ultimate evil has returned with them. Enter the most terrifying scenes from the new Blumhouse film. I guess time will tell. As for that Chucky update, we now have a Chucky house name. It is called Chucky Ultimate Kill Count. Chucky, the serial killer doll, is back for a new gore fest. He's hijacked his own haunted house with all kinds of bloody hijinks. You and your friends must try to survive his ultimate kill count. Now, there is an official Universal podcast out there that talks about the haunted houses, and if you don't care about spoilers, they gave some more information about this house. I am going to choose not to share spoilers on my channel because I started listening to the Originals podcast for it and got a decent amount of the Oddfellow house spoiled for me. They warned that there would be spoilers. I just didn't think they would get that in depth in it, and they did. So if you really want to know what's coming in these houses, I recommend checking out the Discover Universal podcast. I will link it down below. I am going to not share those details in here, but if you want to hear more about Chucky, you can check out their podcast, and this will remain spoiler-free. I'm only going to talk about what's on the website. So this brings us to our final IP for Halloween Horror Nights 2023, and that is Universal Monsters Unmasked. 4 monsters, 1 new nightmare. Descend into the Paris catacombs where you and your squad, I appreciate that they left out the scream there, where you and your squad will face a new horde of monsters. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the Phantom of the Opera, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and the Invisible Man. All the rumors were true, although I don't think I saw too much about the Invisible Man being thrown around there, so that is exciting. And I personally love the Phantom of the Opera. I'm most excited for that, but I'm also very curious to see how they will represent the Invisible Man in this house and which type of costume we get for the Invisible Man. Very excited for this one. I'm not going to go through my hype list because you're going to have to listen to the RIP Tour podcast to get that information. I'm hyped for this one. And now let's move to the originals. You guys know I am all about the originals, and we got some good ones announced today. The last rumor map was pretty accurate, and we are starting with Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins. So here is Dr. Oddfellow. Here is what I'm going to call the icon of our event, because he is all through the lore of this event. He is all through the lore of the scare zones. I'm gonna consider him an icon. I think he was written to be an icon. Whether or not he was marketed to be an icon is another story. For this house, we have a subtitle. Your soul is a price he's willing to pay. You won't be able to resist going inside Dr. Oddfellow's menacing menagerie of twisted oddities, but the price for you and your friends is steep. the cost of your souls to feed his immortal power. I've already had requests to do a lore video for Dr. Oddfellow, so I will be doing a Horror Nights history lesson on Dr. Oddfellow, maybe even next week. I just need a little time to put it all together so you can catch up to his story that we've known thus far, the story that we were just given today, and how that all connects with the icon of all icons at Halloween Horror Nights, Jack. So if you don't know, the short version is Dr. Oddfellow has a direct connection to Jack, and the rest of that story will be in a separate video. But my nerdy HHN lore loving self is loving all of this new content that they're creating for this version of Dr. Oddfellow. Moving on to one that's definitely going to be near the top of my hype list, we have Dueling Dragons, Choose Thy Fate. No matter who you choose, you lose. 2 warlocks of great power were turned into dragons after trying to take Merlin's spellbook. Now you and your friends are caught in their epic battle. You must choose a path and a victor. So we're gonna have multiple endings to this house. You're going to have to choose an ending, and we haven't had that at Halloween Horror Nights in I don't even know how many years. I don't think I've ever gone through a house where I had to choose which direction I was going. It's been a very, very, very long time since we've seen any sort of mechanic like that in a house at Halloween Horror Nights, so I am stoked for this one. It's obviously based on the ride that used to be at Islands of Adventure, Dueling Dragons, and there was formerly a Choose Thy Fate sign where when you got to a certain area of the ride, it had a red or blue dragon. I think I actually have a picture of me at the Choose Thy Fate sign, ironically before Halloween Horror Nights 2006. So that's the sign I'm talking about, and I just think this is going to be such a cool retelling of the story from that attraction, and I cannot wait for it, and I'm really excited to see that multiple ending where you have to choose thy fate. Next up, we have Yeti Campground Kills. So we've got another chapter in the Yeti saga. Yeti or not, here they come. All right, I don't think you're ready for this, Yeti. You and your friends are about to venture into a 1950s campground overrun by huge, menacing Yetis who rip apart anyone who gets in their way. You must flee to the Ranger Tower to escape. So again, the rumors were right on the money. We are getting a forest, campground, national park sort of vibe for these Yetis. I do think they would technically be Bigfoot in that setting, but we're gonna leave it with Yeti because I know that's like the franchise name, and we'll let it go. Moving on, we have The Darkest Deal. Fame is fleeting, fear is forever. Blues musician Pine Straw Spruce. It's quite the name. Will have to face the music after meeting with the Collector and trading his soul for musical glory. You and your squad learn the terrible price of fame. Again, right on the money with the rumors we heard. I love the artwork for this one. Very curious to see how this story plays out. We don't get a lot of detail in this, and I don't want to listen to the podcast to have spoilers, so I'm going in pleasantly surprised, open mind, waiting to see what lies in store for us. And then for our final original, we have Blood Moon Dark Offerings. Bleed for the Blood Moon. In a colonial era village, moon worshippers witness a blood moon at their fall festival. They take it as a sign to hunt down any non-followers, including you and your Scream Squad. Oh, we almost made it. We almost made it. They used squad. We were so close. We were so close, guys, but yeah, there's your Scream Squad. They had to use it at least once just for me, I'm sure. So the rumor said witches, but we heard colonial witches. I think we went Salem with it. Doesn't sound like there's witches. It's a cult house, but still set in that time period and colonial village. I have heard that this one might be very scenic, so I'm excited to see it in person. And if it has any sort of Roanoke vibes, I'm gonna be so thrilled because Roanoke was a sleeper hit and highly underrated, and I loved it. So that is our house lineup for 2023. I am so stoked. Obviously, you guys know Exorcist and Chucky are not my wheelhouse. I'm not that excited for those two, but everything else on that list, I am stoked for. I am a Last of Us fan now. I'm done with the game and I'm about 4 episodes through the series. I am fully invested. Cannot wait to see that in person. Stranger Things, I was begging for Stranger Things to come this year. Cannot wait. Universal Monsters, keep bringing them on. They've been great, every single one. I am excited to see what this one entails, set in Paris with the Phantom. This one seems like it was made for me. All the originals sound so good, and they very much have an old school feel to them, like early 2000s Halloween Horror Nights concepts. The artwork is intriguing. The descriptions sound great. I am hyped, guys. You guys know I would be honest with you if I wasn't actually feeling this event. I've told you how I feel about Exorcist. I've told you how I feel about Chucky. And it feels really nice to be that amped for the houses this year. So with that, let's move on to the scare zones and talk more about Oddfellow because he is scattered throughout all of the story for these zones. So let's start with the scare zone that's gonna be at the very front. Right when you walk in, you are gonna be greeted by Dr. Oddfellow and his collection of horror. This is gonna be a mishmash zone like we've had the past few years. You're gonna see characters from all the other zones thrown in here, his creatures. But the official description says, Dr. Oddfellow will lure you into Halloween Horror Nights with a promise of immortality. As he lifts the veil on all the horrors to come, you'll soon realize you may not even survive the night. Moving on to Hollywood, we have Dark Zodiac. Dr. Oddfellow has entered a dark dimension to harness the power of the Zodiac and live forever. He twists the signs into malevolent beings who foretell your doom. As his star rises, yours falls. This is high on my hype list. It's supposed to be dark and creepy and twisted versions of the Zodiac, elements, tarot. I'm very, very excited for this one. Moving to Central Park, we have Jungle of Doom Expedition Horror. So now, way back in the day, there was a Jungle of Doom. So this is a callback to Horror Nights of yore. In the 1920s, Dr. Oddfellow ventured deep into the darkest jungle, performing horrific experiments on nature. Now his monstrous creations are running amok and coming after you. I did listen to the Scare Zone podcast that Universal put out earlier. Again, do not listen to it if you don't want spoilers. I am not going to reveal anything big about this zone. However, I do want to say they are talking about telling the story of Dr. Oddfellow and his lore through the zone. So Jungle of Doom is the beginning origins of him hunting for immortality. The Dark Zodiac zone is him working on gaining that immortality using these, I don't know if you'd call them spells, but using the Zodiac to work toward immortality. I'm gonna skip over to Shipyard 32 Horrors Unhinged, which will be in San Francisco, working around the circle. Enter a 1940s San Francisco shipping yard full of mysterious crates and cages bearing Dr. Oddfellow's symbol. Beware, his nightmarish oddities have now escaped, spreading fear and chaos in their wake. We've got a shipyard. Dr. Oddfellow is transferring his creatures and they escape. And this teaser that they said in the podcast, I feel like is not enough of a spoiler that it's gonna bother anyone. We're gonna see some old creatures that are familiar to us and some new creatures. But seeing those old creatures, it's tying into the story that Dr. Oddfellow has been part of this event for years, behind the scenes, influencing what we see and what monsters come after us. The possibilities are endless of what masks and costumes we'll see back again, but I'm always here for a throwback. And then finally, we have the zone that I'm so happy is returning. We have Vamp 69 Summer of Blood. At a 60s music fest in a small New York town that's totally not Woodstock, you'll jam to popular bands with fellow concert goers until Dr. Oddfellow unleashes vicious vampires on the audience. They're out for your blood. So this is the latest installment of the Vamp series. We had Vamp 55, we had Vamp 85, and now we have Vamp 69. Does it bother me a little bit that it's not Vamp 65? Yes, but I understand why, because Woodstock took place in 1969. I am excited for it. I cannot wait to see what music they choose. Can't wait to see the costumes, and can't wait to see these vamps that Dr. Oddfellow has unleashed on this poor, unsuspecting town in New York. So that's our scare zones. Again, I think there's a lot of potential here. You have the fun party zone with Vamp 69. You have a creepy, dark Zodiac zone. The Jungle of Doom sets look really great already. I like the concept of it. Not sure what the costumes are going to be, but it's something different. And the shipyard, we get a little taste of old and new Horror Nights all thrown together. Seems like great potential, and I love that they're weaving the Dr. Oddfellow story through everything. One last tidbit from the podcast is that we might see Dr. Oddfellow or a representation of Dr. Oddfellow in every scare zone. So it might not be obvious, the same costume that he's wearing right up front when you walk in. So we're gonna have to keep our eyes out. It's gonna be like a little Easter egg hunt to see if we can figure out which representation of Dr. Oddfellow is in that zone. So finally, that brings us to our one and only show for Halloween Horror Nights 32, and that is Nightmare Fuel Revenge Dream. The show that sparked your darkest dreams has reignited. Let your nightmares burn out of control as the pyro and aerial performers fire you up to the beat of metal and electronica. Maybe this will be the first year that I've ever seen the show. I'm on 0 for 2 so far on seeing it anywhere other than YouTube. I know everyone loves the show. I'm sure a lot of you are glad it's back for a third year. I just like to spend my time in Scare Zone. That's what we have. We will obviously be getting a food update pretty soon. They did release a specially ticketed food event that will be happening in the month of August as a preview for all the food items and drink items that you'll have at Halloween Horror Nights. It's like $160 per person for a 2-hour small preview. It's not something that I will be investing my money in because I will be able to try plenty of the foods over the 2 months that I'm using my frequent fare pass. So I don't really see the value in it. But if you're someone who is afraid of Halloween Horror Nights and yet somehow watching this video as far as you've gotten into this video and you want to try the foods, that option is available to you. For me, it's going to be a skip, but I am curious to see all the new menu items, food items, petrified rat tails come back and see what they have in store for us there. We also know that the Tribute Store is returning to New York, which is fantastic news because that Tribute Store over in Hollywood, while cute, is not big enough to handle all of the Halloween Horror Nights crowds. They mentioned it having a comic book store theme, which sounds very interesting. Can't wait to see that. And we know Dead Coconut Club is returning, which is fantastic news because I accidentally skipped it in 2022. Did not intend to miss out on it. I absolutely loved the Christmas version and the Mardi Gras version, and I'm still very sad that I missed the Dead Coconut version. So I will not be missing it this year, and I cannot wait to see what the theme is for that one. So I think that's all the information we got today. However, stay tuned. Dr. Oddfellow lesson coming up very soon. I've got tips and tricks videos coming up. We are just over a month away from the event. You guys know I'm gonna be there opening night and opening weekend, filming, vlogging, covering it all, having a blast in the fog. And there's a lot to come in this next month. Let me know in the comments what you think of the announcements, which house you're most looking forward to, which scare zone you're most looking forward to, and if you are as stoked as I am that we finally have an icon again, Dr. Oddfellow. I'm calling it. We have an icon again, and it's very exciting. Well, I think that's gonna wrap things up for today. So until next time, stay safe and stay spooky. Bye.